They say blood is thicker than water, but I'm starting to think mine runs green, the colour of money my family loves more than me. My name is Remy, and 3 hours ago I made the biggest mistake of my life. I handed over $47,000 to save people who were never drowning in the first place. Remy, sweetheart, we need to talk. Dad's voice cracked through the phone at 6 a.m., that familiar tremor that meant crisis mode. By 7, he was at my kitchen table with Mom and my sister Juliet, all wearing matching expressions of desperation. The business is failing, Dad said, running his hands through his greying hair. 20 years I've built this company, and now. He gestured helplessly at the stack of papers Mom spread across my table like evidence in a murder trial. We're going to lose everything, Mom added, her perfectly manicured fingers drumming against my chipped formica. The house, the cars, your father's reputation. Juliet, who hadn't spoken to me in 3 months, except to ask for money, suddenly grabbed my hand. Remy, you're the only one who can help us. You've always been the responsible one. I stared at the documents, loan notices, bank statements, legal threats. The numbers swam before my eyes. $60,000. That's what they needed to stay afloat. I don't have that kind of money, I said quietly. But Phoebe's medical fund, Dad started. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. That money is for my daughter's treatment. You know how serious her condition is. Phoebe's rare genetic disorder requires specialized care that insurance barely covers. Every dollar in that account represents a night I worked overtime, a dinner I skipped, a pair of shoes I didn't buy. It's her future, her life. Of course we know, Mum said, her voice softening into that tone she uses when she wants something. But honey, this is temporary. We'll pay you back with interest within 30 days. The contract Logan drew up guarantees it. Logan, their accountant, nodded from the corner where he'd been silently shuffling papers. It's all legal, Remy. Ironclad repayment terms. Think about it, Juliet said, squeezing my hand tighter. If Dad loses the business, we lose our health insurance too. What happens to Phoebe then? The manipulation was so smooth, I almost didn't catch it. Almost. But I looked at Dad's face, really looked, and saw something that made my chest tight. Fear. Real, bone-deep terror. This man who taught me to ride a bike, who carried me on his shoulders at every carnival, who called me his little fixer whenever family problems needed solving. Show me the contract, I said. Logan handed me a thick folder. Standard loan agreement, payment schedule, interest rates. Everything looked legitimate. But something nagged at me, a memory of my friend Gabriella from law school warning me about family business deals. I need to have my lawyer review this, I said. There's no time, Dad said urgently. The bank deadline is today. If we don't have the money by 3 p.m., they start foreclosure proceedings. I called Gabriella anyway. She was in court, but promised to look it over quickly. 20 minutes later, she called back. It's standard, but I added a clause, she said. Trust me on this one, Remy. If they're legitimate, it won't matter. If they're not. She paused. Let's just say you'll have options. What kind of clause? Just sign it. I'll explain later. By noon, I was at the bank, transferring $47,000, every penny of Phoebe's medical fund, into my father's account. The teller asked twice if I was sure. I wasn't, but I signed anyway. You're saving us, Dad said, hugging me so tight I could smell his cologne mixed with desperation. I promise you won't regret this. Mum kissed my cheek. You're a good daughter, Remy, the best. Juliet actually cried. I love you so much, we all do. They left together, a united front of gratitude and relief. I sat alone in my empty kitchen, staring at the contract Gabriella had modified. The additional clause was buried on page 7, written in legal language I didn't fully understand. Something about asset seizure and business ownership transfer in case of default. I should have read it more carefully, should have asked more questions, should have trusted the voice in my head, screaming that something was wrong. But I didn't, because they're my family and family comes first. That was 3 hours ago. Now I'm putting Phoebe to bed, promising her that her next doctor's appointment won't be cancelled, lying through my teeth because I have no idea how I'm going to pay for it. "Mommy, why do you look sad?" she asks, her 6-year-old eyes too wise for her age. "I'm not sad, baby, just tired." But as I turn off her light, I can't shake the feeling that I've just made a deal with the devil, and the devil has my father's eyes. 7 days. That's how long it took for my world to completely shatter. 7 days of eating ramen noodles and telling Phoebe we were having adventure meals. 7 days of dodging calls from her specialist's office about the upcoming appointment I couldn't afford. 7 days of waiting for my family to check in, to ask how I was managing, to show even the smallest sign they remembered what I'd sacrificed for them. Nothing. Radio silence. I was folding Phoebe's laundry when my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. Juliet had tagged me in a story. My hands went numb. There she was, my baby sister, standing in front of a gleaming white BMW SUV with a giant red bow on the hood. The caption read, "Dreams do come true. Thank you, universe, for this blessing." New car. Blessed. Living. See, best life. I scrolled back through her recent posts with shaking fingers. A tour of a luxury condo with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Designer handbags spread across marble countertops. Champagne glasses raised in celebration at some upscale restaurant I couldn't pronounce the name of. All posted within the last week. All funded by my daughter's medical money. "Mommy, you're crying," Phoebe said from the doorway, clutching her stuffed elephant. I wiped my face quickly. "Just something in my eye, sweetheart." But my hands were shaking as I called Dad's cell phone, straight to voicemail. Mum's phone, same thing. Juliet didn't even have voicemail set up, just a generic robot voice. I tried the business line, expecting another dead end. "Hanson Enterprises, this is Logan." "Logan, it's Remy. I need to speak with my father immediately." A long pause. "He's not available right now." "Then make him available. I just saw Juliet's Instagram posts. I want to know where my money went." "Remy, Logan's voice dropped to a whisper. "I can't really talk right now. Can I call you back?" "No, you can talk now. Is the business actually in trouble or not?" Another pause, longer this time. I could hear voices in the background, someone laughing. "Logan, answer me." "I have to go," he said quickly. "I'll call you later." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my heart hammering against my ribs. Then I called Gabriella. "They played you," she said after I explained everything. "I'm so sorry, Remy. I had a feeling something was off when I reviewed that contract." "What do you mean you had a feeling? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I hoped I was wrong, because they're your family." Her voice was gentle but firm. "But that clause I added, it's going to save your ass." "What clause? You never explained it properly." "If they default on the loan, which they will, because they never intended to pay you back, you get control of the business. All of it. Assets, accounts, everything." I sank onto my couch. They don't know about this. Not unless they read the fine print, which, based on how eager they were to sign, I'm guessing they didn't. "But what if they do pay me back?" Gabriella laughed, but there was no humour in it. "Honey, they just bought a BMW and a condo with your money. They don't have $47,000 to pay you back." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept refreshing Juliet's Instagram, watching her stories of champagne toasts and designer shopping sprees. Each post felt like a knife twisting deeper. At 2 a.m, my phone buzzed. A text from Logan. "Can we meet tomorrow? There are things you need to know." I texted back immediately. "What things?" "Not over text. Coffee shop on 5th Street, 10 a.m. "Logan, just tell me now." They're moving money around, trying to hide assets. Your dad thinks the loan agreement won't hold up in court. My blood turned to ice. What else? Tomorrow, I promise I'll tell you everything. I sat in my dark living room, listening to Phoebe's steady breathing from her bedroom, and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Not sadness anymore, not even anger, determination. They thought they were so clever, thought they could manipulate their way out of consequences like they always had, thought I was still the same pushover who would smile and forgive and clean up their messes. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I pulled up the loan agreement on my laptop and read every single word, especially the clause Gabriella had buried on page 7. Asset seizure upon default, business ownership transfer, personal property included as collateral, 23 days left until the payment was due. I started making a list. Logan looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dark circles under his eyes, coffee-stained shirt, hands shaking as he stirred his latte. They're panicking, he said without preamble. Your dad spent all yesterday with lawyers trying to find loopholes in that contract. Did they find any? No, Gabriella did good work. He leaned forward. But Remy, they're not planning to pay you back. They're moving everything offshore. Business accounts, personal assets, even the new condo is being transferred to some shell company. My grip tightened on my coffee cup. How long do I have? Maybe a week before everything disappears. They think if there's nothing left to seize, the contract becomes meaningless. And you're telling me this because? Logan's face flushed. Because I've watched your family treat you like garbage for years. Because I know how hard you work for Phoebe. Because this is wrong, even for them. I studied his face. What else aren't you telling me? He pulled out his phone, scrolled through some files. Your dad's been skimming from the business for months. The company was never in trouble. This whole thing was planned. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too loud. Planned how? They needed a big score to fund their lifestyle upgrade. Your medical fund was the perfect target. They knew you'd never say no if they made it about family survival. How long have you known? I suspected when they asked me to draft the loan papers, but I didn't have proof until yesterday. He showed me his phone screen, bank transfers, email threads, financial documents. Your dad's been bragging about it, called you predictably generous in an email to your mum. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. I need addresses. Remy, what are you going to do? What I should have done a week ago. Juliet's new condo was in the expensive part of downtown, all glass and steel and pretension. The doorman tried to stop me, but I pushed past him into the elevator. I didn't knock. I used the spare key I knew she'd hide under the fake plant by her door. Some habits never change. Surprise, I said, walking into her living room where my entire family was sprawled across white leather furniture, champagne glasses in hand. Mum dropped her glass. Remy, what are you doing here? Admiring the decorating. Very nice. Must have cost a fortune. I walked slowly around the room, taking in the designer everything, the massive TV, the artwork that probably cost more than my rent. $47,000 worth, I'd guess. Dad stood up, trying to look authoritative. You can't just barge in here. Actually, I can, especially when you're spending my daughter's medical money on champagne and art. Juliet laughed, actually laughed. Oh, please, Remy, don't be so dramatic. It's just money. Just money? I turned to face her. It's my 6-year-old daughter's future. It's her ability to walk, to live normally, to have a chance. You'll figure something out, Mum said dismissively. You always do. You're resourceful. Like how I figured out you were lying about the business being in trouble. The room went quiet. Dad's face went pale. Logan told me everything. The offshore accounts, the asset transfers, the emails where you called me predictably generous. Logan had no right, Dad started. Logan had every right. He's the only honest person in this family. I pulled the loan agreement from my purse and dropped it on the coffee table. 20 days left on your repayment deadline. Juliet picked up the contract, flipping through pages. This is just a formality. We don't actually have to pay you back. Actually, you do. Page 7, clause 15. Read it carefully. Mom grabbed the papers from Juliet, scanning frantically. Her face went white. What is this? Insurance, in case you decided to screw me over. I smiled sweetly. Which you did. This can't be legal, Dad said, but his voice cracked. Gabriella assures me it is. Ironclad, I think she called it. You can't take our business, Juliet said, but she didn't sound confident anymore. I can take everything, the business, this condo, that pretty BMW downstairs. All of it becomes mine if you default. We'll pay you back, Dad said quickly. With what money? The money you moved offshore? The money you spent on luxury cars and condos? I laughed and it felt good. You have 20 days to come up with $47,000 plus interest. That's $52,000 total. Remy, please, Mum said, her voice breaking. We're family. Family? I repeated the word like it tasted bitter. Family doesn't steal from sick children. Family doesn't lie and manipulate and celebrate while their daughter eats ramen for a week. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Juliet, you might want to start packing. This place is going to be mine soon. You're bluffing, she said, but tears were streaming down her face. 20 days, I said, opening the door. Don't forget to mark your calendar. I could hear them arguing before the elevator doors even closed. Dad's voice raised and angry, Mum crying, Juliet screaming about lawyers and lawsuits. Let them scream, let them panic, let them feel what I felt when I realized they'd stolen my daughter's future. 20 days, and then we'd see who was really family. Gabriella spread the documents across her desk like a general planning a war. They're getting desperate, she said, pointing to a stack of legal papers. 3 different law firms contacted me this week trying to find loopholes. Your dad's throwing money at lawyers faster than he threw it at luxury cars. Any luck for them? None. The contract is bulletproof. She leaned back in her chair. But they're not going down without a fight. Logan says they're liquidating everything they can to raise cash. 52,000 in 15 days? Good luck with that. My phone buzzed. Text from Logan. Emergency meeting. They found something. Starbucks on Main, 20 minutes. I showed Gabriella the message. Her face darkened. Go. I'll keep working on the asset list. Logan was already there when I arrived, hunched over his laptop like he was hiding state secrets. They hired a forensic accountant, he said without looking up. Someone to dig into your finances, find dirt they can use against you. What kind of dirt? Anything. Unpaid taxes, questionable deductions, late payments. They're trying to prove you're not financially responsible enough to own a business. That's ridiculous. It gets worse. He turned his laptop toward me. They're also investigating Phoebe's medical fund, claiming you might have inflated her treatment costs to get sympathy money. My vision went red. They're attacking my daughter now. Your mum's idea, apparently. She thinks if they can prove you're a fraud, they can void the contract. Can they? Not legally, but they're hoping to drag this out in court long enough to hide more assets. Logan closed his laptop. There's something else. They're planning to declare bankruptcy. What? If the business has no assets, there's nothing for you to seize. They file Chapter 7, dissolve everything, then start fresh under a different name. I felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. When? Soon, maybe days. Logan, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Document everything, every transfer, every hidden account, every conversation. Can you do that? He nodded. Already started. That evening, I was making dinner when someone knocked on my door. Through the peephole, I saw an elderly man in an expensive coat. "Can I help you?" I called through the door. "My name is Nestor. I'm an old friend of your father's. We need to talk." I opened the door but kept the chain on. "About what?" About what your family did to you and what they did to me 20 years ago." I let him in. Nestor was probably 70, with kind eyes and calloused hands that suggested he'd worked for his money. "Your father and I were business partners once," he said, settling into my kitchen chair, "until he screwed me out of my share of the company." "What company?" "The one that became Hansen Enterprises. It was originally Zimmerman and Hansen Construction." He pulled out a manila envelope. "I've been waiting 20 years for the right moment to get my revenge. I think that moment is now." Inside the envelope were contracts, bank statements, legal documents dating back decades. "Your father forged my signature on papers that transferred my ownership to him. By the time I realized what happened, he'd moved all the assets and I couldn't afford to fight him in court." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Logan reached out to me, told me what they did to you." Nestor's eyes hardened. "Your father has been running the same con for decades, taking money from people who trust him, then finding ways to keep it." "What's in these documents?" "Proof that Hansen Enterprises was built on fraud, proof that your father has been embezzling for years, proof that this isn't the first time he's stolen from family." I flipped through the papers, my hands shaking. Bank transfers to offshore accounts, forged signatures, tax evasion, money laundering. "There's more," Nestor said. "Your college fund, the money your parents said they lost in bad investments. Your father used it to buy your mother's engagement ring upgrade." "What?" "The fund for your wedding that mysteriously disappeared. Down payment on Juliet's first apartment." He pointed to a bank statement. "Every time your family needed money, they took it from you. You've been their personal ATM for over a decade." I stared at the documents, seeing my entire life through new eyes. Every sacrifice I'd made, every time I'd gone without, every dollar I'd given them, it was all part of a pattern. "Why didn't you come forward before?" I tried. "But your father's smart. He always covered his tracks, always had explanations." Nestor stood up. "But now he's gotten sloppy, desperate, and you have legal standing to do what I never could." "What do you want in return?" "Justice, and maybe a small piece of what should have been mine all along." My phone rang. Gabriella. "Remy, we have a problem. They just filed for emergency bankruptcy protection. The hearing is tomorrow morning." I looked at Nestor, at the evidence spread across my table, at the photo of Phoebe on my refrigerator. "Actually," I said, "I think they're the ones with the problem." The bankruptcy courtroom was packed. Dad sat at the plaintiff's table with 2 expensive lawyers looking confident. He hadn't seen me yet. "Your Honour," his lead attorney was saying, "my client's business has suffered catastrophic losses due to market conditions beyond his control. This emergency filing is necessary to protect the company's remaining assets and employees." Judge Martinez looked bored. "And the nature of these catastrophic losses?" "A combination of supply chain issues, labour shortages, and unexpected legal obligations that have rendered the business insolvent." I stood up. "Your Honour, I'd like to contest this filing." Dad's head whipped around. His face went white when he saw me sitting with Gabriella and Nestor. "And you are?" Judge Martinez asked. "Remy Hansen, the defendant's daughter and primary creditor. I have evidence that this bankruptcy filing is fraudulent." Dad's lawyer jumped up. "Objection! This woman has no standing." "Actually, she does," Gabriella said, rising smoothly. "My client holds a secured loan agreement for $52,000, making her the largest creditor. She has every right to challenge this filing." Judge Martinez gestured for us to approach the bench. "Ms. Hansen, what evidence do you have?" I handed him Nestor's folder. bank records showing asset transfers to offshore accounts within the last 2 weeks, email communications discussing plans to hide money from creditors, and evidence of systematic fraud dating back 20 years. The judge flipped through the documents, his expression growing darker with each page. "Mr. Hanson," he said to my father, "can you explain these transfers to Cayman Islands accounts?" Dad's lawyer whispered frantically in his ear, "Your Honour, those transfers were legitimate business expenses." "Business expenses?" Judge Martinez held up a bank statement. $50,000 to Tropical Investments LLC 3 days ago? "Market diversification," Dad said weakly. "And this email where you discuss making the money disappear before the bitch can touch it?" The judge's voice was ice cold. "Who exactly is the bitch, Mr. Hanson?" Dad's mouth opened and closed like a fish. In the gallery, I could see Mom and Juliet whispering urgently. "Your Honour," Gabriella said, "we also have testimony from Mr. Nestor Zimmerman, my client's father's former business partner, regarding a pattern of fraudulent behaviour." Nestor stood up, his voice carrying across the courtroom. "Morgan Hanson stole my half of this company 20 years ago through forged documents and fraudulent transfers. These bankruptcy papers are just his latest attempt to avoid paying his debts." "This is outrageous," Dad's lawyer protested. "These are unsubstantiated allegations." "With documentation," Judge Martinez said dryly. He turned to Logan, who was sitting in the witness section. "Mr. Robertson, you're listed as the company accountant. Are you prepared to testify about the company's true financial status?" Logan stood up, his hands shaking but his voice steady. "Yes, Your Honour. Hanson Enterprises is not insolvent. The company has over $200,000 in liquid assets, not including the recent transfers to offshore accounts." "And you have records of these assets?" "Complete records, Your Honour, including the real books, not the ones submitted with the bankruptcy filing." Dad lunged toward Logan. "You son of a bitch, I trusted you!" "Order!" Judge Martinez slammed his gavel. "Mr. Hanson, control yourself or I'll hold you in contempt." "Your Honour," Gabriella said, "we request an immediate freeze on all assets pending investigation of fraudulent transfer claims." "Granted. All Hanson Enterprises accounts are frozen effective immediately." The judge turned to Dad's lawyers. "Your bankruptcy petition is denied. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges." Dad's face went purple. "You can't do this. She's my daughter." "A daughter you apparently tried to defraud," Judge Martinez said coldly. "Court is adjourned." Outside the courthouse, Dad cornered me on the steps. "How could you do this to your own family?" he screamed. "We raised you. We loved you." "You stole from me," I said quietly, "for years. My college fund, my wedding money, and now my daughter's medical fund. That's different. That was family money." "No, Dad, that was my money. Money I earned, money I saved, money I needed." Mum appeared beside him, tears streaming down her face. "Remy, please, we can work this out. Family should stick together." "Family doesn't steal from sick children." "We'll pay you back," Juliet said, grabbing my arm. "Every penny, I swear." I pulled away from her. "With what? The money you hid in the Caymans? The money you spent on cars and condos?" "We'll sell everything," Mum said desperately. "The condo, the car, whatever it takes." "Too late for that." I started walking toward Gabriella's car. "You had your chance to do the right thing." "Remy, wait!" Dad's voice cracked. "I'm your father." I turned back one last time. "No, you're not. A father protects his children. A father doesn't steal from his grandchild's medical fund to buy his other daughter a BMW. "We're family!" Juliet screamed. "Blood is thicker than water." "Actually," I said, "the full quote is, 'The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb.' It means the bonds you choose are stronger than the ones you're born with." I got in the car, leaving them standing on the courthouse steps, finally understanding that their golden goose had learned to bite back. "How do you feel?" Gabriella asked as we drove away. I watched my family shrinking in the rearview mirror, looking lost and broken, and suddenly very small. Like I can finally breathe. 30 days. The deadline arrived on a Tuesday morning while I was making Phoebe's breakfast. My phone rang at exactly 9 a.m. Dad's number. "Remy, we need more time," he said without preamble. "Just another week. We're liquidating assets, but the process—" "No." "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, the contract was very clear. 30 days. Today is day 30. "But we're family. Surely you can extend—" I hung up and called Gabriella. "It's time." "Are you sure? Once we execute this clause, there's no going back." "I'm sure." An hour later, we were at Hanson Enterprises. Logan met us at the front door, looking nervous but determined. "They're all here," he said quietly. "Conference room. They think they're meeting with their lawyers to discuss payment options." Perfect. We walked through the office I'd visited countless times as a child, past the receptionist who'd watched me grow up, into the conference room where my family sat around the mahogany table Dad was so proud of. "What is she doing here?" Juliet demanded when she saw me. "Executing a contract," Gabriella said, setting her briefcase on the table. "As of 9 a.m. this morning, your loan payment was officially in default." Dad's lawyer, a thin man in an expensive suit, cleared his throat. "We're prepared to offer a payment plan." "No payment plans," I said, taking a seat at the head of the table. "Logan, please read the asset transfer documents." Logan opened his laptop, his voice shaking slightly. "As per Clause 15 of the loan agreement, failure to repay the full amount within 30 days results in immediate transfer of all business assets to the lender." "This is ridiculous," Mum said. "You can't just take our business." "Actually, I can." I nodded to Gabriella, who pulled out a thick folder. "Logan, please confirm the current status of all company accounts." "All accounts are frozen pending transfer to Remy Hanson. Total liquid assets, $237,000. Dad slammed his hand on the table. "Those are my accounts." "Were your accounts," Logan corrected. "As of this morning, legal ownership transfers to your daughter." "What about the offshore money?" Juliet demanded. "What offshore money?" Gabriella asked innocently. "According to your bankruptcy filing, no such accounts exist." I watched Dad's face cycle through emotions: anger, disbelief, desperation. "Remy, please, I'm begging you, don't do this." "Like you begged me when you stole Phoebe's medical fund." "That was different." "How?" "We're your parents. We sacrificed everything for you." "No, you sacrificed me for everything else." I stood up. "Logan, what's the status of the real estate holdings?" "The office building, the warehouse, and 3 rental properties are now under your control. Also," he glanced at Juliet, "the downtown condo was purchased with company funds, so it's included in the asset transfer." Juliet's face went white. "You can't take my home. It was never your home. It was bought with stolen money." "Remy," Mum said, her voice breaking, "we raised you. We loved you. How can you destroy us like this?" "I'm not destroying you. I'm taking back what you stole from me and my daughter." Dad's lawyer tried one last time. "Ms. Hanson, surely we can reach some accommodation." "The accommodation was 30 days to repay the loan. That time has expired." "You're making a mistake," Dad said, his voice turning cold. "You think you can run this business. You think you know what it takes." "I think I know what it takes not to steal from my own family." "We gave you everything," Mum screamed. "A roof over your head, food, clothes, education." "That's called being a parent. It's not a loan I need to repay for the rest of my life." Logan cleared his throat. "There's one more thing. The BMW registered to Juliet was purchased with a company check, so it's also subject to seizure." Juliet started crying. "This is insane. You're taking everything." "I'm taking back everything you took from me." Dad stood up slowly, his face a mask of rage. "You want to know the truth? We never loved you. You were always the difficult one, the one who asked too many questions, who never just went along with things. Morgan, Mum warned. No, let her hear it. Juliet was our real daughter. You were just useful, good at fixing problems, good at giving us money when we needed it. The words should have hurt. A week ago they would have destroyed me. Now they just felt like confirmation. Thank you for finally being honest, I said. Logan, please escort them from the building. They're no longer employees here. You can't fire us, Dad shouted. This is our company. Was your company. Security will be here in 10 minutes to change the locks. As they filed out, Dad turned back one last time. You'll regret this. Family is all you have in this world, and you just threw it away. No, I said quietly. I just got my family back, the one that matters. Through the conference room window, I watched them walk to their cars, or rather, to the bus stop, since the BMW was being towed. Logan sat down heavily in his chair. How do you feel? Like I just won the lottery and lost my family on the same day. They were never really your family, were they? I looked at the photo of Phoebe on my phone. No, but she is. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in my new office, Dad's old office, when the intercom buzzed. Miss Hanson, your father is here to see you. I looked up from the financial reports Logan had prepared. The business was actually thriving once we stopped the hemorrhaging money to offshore accounts. Send him in! Dad walked through the door like a broken man. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair uncombed, his eyes red-rimmed. Behind him shuffled Mom and Juliet, both looking like they hadn't slept in days. We need to talk, Dad said, his voice barely above a whisper. About what? About getting our lives back. He sat down heavily in the chair across from my desk. Remy, we're homeless. The bank foreclosed on the house yesterday. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Juliet snapped. Because you could stop this any time you want. Stop what? Stop you from facing the consequences of your actions? Mum stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. We'll do anything. Work for you, pay you back, whatever it takes. Work for me? I leaned back in Dad's old leather chair. Doing what? I could be a receptionist, Mum said desperately, or clean offices, anything. And I could do filing, Juliet added, or answer phones. I looked at Dad. What about you? What job do you think you're qualified for? His face flushed red. I built this company from nothing. You built it on stolen money and fraud. That's not exactly a marketable skill. Remy, please, he said, and I'd never heard him sound so defeated. We're living in a motel. We have nothing left. You have each other. Isn't that what family's about? Don't be cruel, Mum said. We know we made mistakes. Mistakes? I stood up, walking around the desk. You stole my daughter's medical fund. You celebrated while I ate ramen for dinner. You called me predictably generous in emails. Those weren't mistakes. Those were choices. We're sorry, Juliet sobbed. We're so sorry. Sorry you got caught, or sorry you did it. Both. We're sorry for everything. I walked to the window overlooking the parking lot. Down below, I could see the BMW that used to be Juliet's, now with a for sale sign in the window. The condo sold yesterday, I said, without turning around. Got a good price for it. That's our money, Dad said weakly. No, that's Phoebe's money. Every penny is going into her medical fund, where it should have been all along. What about us? Mum asked. What are we supposed to do? Get jobs, find an apartment you can afford, live within your means. I turned back to face them. You know, like normal people do. We don't know how, Juliet whispered. Then learn. Dad stood up suddenly, his old arrogance flashing back. You can't keep us out of our own company forever. We'll fight this in court. With what money? Your legal fees alone cost more than you make in a month at whatever minimum wage jobs you can find. We'll get investors. We'll start over. Who's going to invest in people with fraud charges pending? The fight went out of him as quickly as it had appeared. He slumped back into the chair. "Please," he said, and the words sounded foreign in his mouth. "We're begging you." "Like I begged you not to take Phoebe's money." "That was different." "No, it wasn't." I walked back to my desk. "Logan, please escort my former family out of the building." Logan appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable, but determined. "Wait," Mum said, grabbing my arm. "What if we got down on our knees? Would that help?" I stared at her. "What?" "If we got down on our knees and begged, would you give us another chance?" Before I could answer, she dropped to her knees on the office carpet. Dad and Juliet followed, all three of them kneeling in front of my desk like penitents in a church. "Please," Mum whispered, "we'll do anything." "We'll be your servants," Juliet added. "We'll work for free." "We'll never ask for anything again," Dad said, his voice breaking. I looked down at them, these people who had raised me, who had shaped me, who had ultimately betrayed me in the worst possible way. They looked so small, so pathetic, so completely destroyed, and I felt nothing. "Get up," I said quietly. They scrambled to their feet, hope flickering in their eyes. "The answer is still no." "But we're on our knees," Juliet screamed. "We're begging." "And now you know how it feels to be powerless, how it feels to need something desperately and be told no." I sat back down, picked up my pen, and returned to the financial reports. "Logan will show you out. Don't come back." As they filed toward the door, Dad turned back one last time. "You've become heartless," he said, "just like us." "No," I replied without looking up. "I've become smart, finally." The door closed behind them with a soft click. Through the window, I watched them walk to the bus stop, their shoulders hunched against the wind. My phone buzzed. A text from Phoebe's doctor. "Treatment fund received. We can schedule her surgery for next month." I smiled for the first time in weeks. The letter arrived on a Thursday morning, addressed in Dad's familiar handwriting. I almost threw it away without opening it. "What's that, Mommy?" Phoebe asked, looking up from her cereal. Her surgery had been a complete success, and watching her walk normally still made my chest tight with relief. "Just junk mail, sweetheart." But curiosity won. I opened it while she finished breakfast. "Remy, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to write this. It's been 3 months since you took everything from us, and I want you to know what you've done. Ice, your mother is working at a grocery store, bagging groceries for teenagers who treat her like dirt. Juliet is a waitress at some dive bar, coming home with her feet bleeding and her pride shattered. I'm doing construction work, the same kind of labor I swore I'd never do again after I built the company. We're living in a 1-bedroom apartment that smells like mold and broken dreams. We can barely afford ramen noodles, which I guess is poetic justice in your mind. But here's what I really want to tell you. I'm proud of you. You outplayed us completely. You were smarter, more ruthless, and more strategic than I ever gave you credit for. You took everything we taught you about manipulation and power, and you used it against us perfectly. The student became the master. Yet, I spent 30 years thinking you were weak, that you were just the family fixer who would always clean up our messes. I was wrong. You're exactly like me, maybe worse, because at least I never pretended to be the good guy. You want to know the truth? I'm not sorry we took your money. I'm sorry we got caught. I'm sorry we underestimated you, but I'm not sorry we tried. That's who we are, Remy. That's who you are now, too. Welcome to the family business. I read it twice, then walked to the kitchen trash can and dropped it in. Mommy, why are you making that face? Phoebe asked. What face? The angry face you make when people are being mean. I knelt down to her level. Someone was trying to make me feel bad about protecting you. Did it work? No, baby. It didn't work. My phone rang. Logan, Remy, we have a problem. Your father's been calling our clients, telling them you're unstable and that the company is going to fail. Any luck? Actually, yes. We lost the Morrison account yesterday. They said they don't want to work with a company involved in family drama. I closed my eyes. Of course. Dad couldn't accept losing, so he was trying to destroy what he couldn't have. What do you recommend? Fight back, show them the fraud evidence, the court documents, everything. Make it clear who the real criminal is. No, I'm not going to spend my life fighting them. That's exactly what they want, to drag me down to their level. So what do? We do good work. We treat our clients fairly. We build something better than what they had. And if we lose more accounts, then we find new ones, honest ones. That afternoon, I was reviewing contracts when Nestor knocked on my office door. How are you holding up? He asked, settling into the chair across from my desk. Dad sent me a letter, basically said I'm just like him now. Nestor laughed. Is that what you think? Sometimes. Let me tell you something about your father. When he stole my half of this company, you know what he did with the money? What? Bought himself a boat, a big expensive boat that he used maybe 5 times. Nestor leaned forward. You know what you did with the money you recovered? Paid for my daughter's surgery. Exactly. You took back what was stolen to help someone who needed it. Your father stole to feed his ego. But I destroyed them. I made them homeless. They made themselves homeless. You just stopped enabling them. I looked out the window at the parking lot where employees were heading home to their families. Do you ever regret it, going after my father all those years ago? Only that it took me so long to do it. Nestor stood up. The difference between you and him isn't what you're capable of doing. It's why you do it. That evening, I was tucking Phoebe into bed when she asked, Mommy, are Grandpa and Grandma ever coming to visit again? I don't think so, sweetheart. Because they were mean to us. Because they made choices that hurt people. Do you miss them? I thought about it honestly. I miss who I thought they were, but I don't miss who they actually are. That's sad. Sometimes doing the right thing is sad. But you still do it? Especially then. She hugged her stuffed elephant tighter. I'm glad you protected me, Mommy. I'll always protect you, baby. Always. After she fell asleep, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea thinking about Dad's letter. He was wrong about one thing. I wasn't like him. I didn't take their money to buy toys or status symbols. I took it to give my daughter a future. But he was right about something else. I had learned from him. I'd learned how to be strategic, how to plan ahead, how to use people's weaknesses against them. The difference was, I'd only used those skills once, against people who had spent years using them against me. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Juliet. Mum's in the hospital. Thought you should know. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it without responding. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. I finished my tea, checked on Phoebe one more time, and went to bed. Tomorrow I had a business to run, employees to pay, and a daughter to raise. The family business could take care of itself.